All right. So now I guess I'm gonna size my tips, and I'll do that off camera so we don't have to spend a bunch of time looking at that. And basically, well, I'll do one for you so that you know how to size a tip. So basically what you're looking for is that tip to run as you, like, you can press down on it because you're going to press down on it to glue it. So you want to press down and kind of rock it on there. And what you're looking for as you do that is for it to touch each side of your nail completely. So you don't want any gaps. If you have gaps, you might end up having gaps in your whole nail like your whole nail area, like however long you end up with it, and it just won't look as consistent and like flush with your natural nails. So you really want to make sure that it fits edge to edge, wall to wall. So I'm going to do the rest of them and I will be right back. Alright, so I've sized out all my tips, and apparently I have like big hands because the smallest or the biggest size that they had is a size 1, which doesn't, like, it almost fits all the way, but it doesn't quite fit. So my thumbnails are probably going to look a little bit narrower, but you know, sometimes you just have to deal with what you get. So I've gone ahead and like re-dehydrated my nails just in case I kind of touched them and got oils on them from my fingers. So I just went and did that, kind of making sure that everything's really clear and clean. So now I have some scissors and I have the little glue for the tips that it came with, and I'm just gonna snip off. There's a little ridge toward the tip and I'm gonna just cut right above it. Whee, that went flying somewhere. Alright, so now that's open, I can see a little bit of glue coming out. And some people, with gluing the tips on, some people like to put it on their nail first and then put the tip on. I personally like to put it in the little well of the tip. If you can see that, there's like a sort of thinner, more translucent part, and that's called the well. So I like to put it in the well of the tip, just so you can really see that it's filling up that well, because you want enough glue that you won't get air bubbles in your application. So what you want to do is go at like a 45-degree angle and then wait till it passes that well ridge and then rock it on side to side with your, either with your finger or with your other hand. So kind of make sure that none of the air gets in there. I may have put a little too much glue this time. Don't use a crap ton of glue to fill up the well. So even less than a drop can be good. So that one was a little bit extra gluey, but it's also the pinky nail, and that one's always like the smallest tip, so it's easier to have that problem. Alright, so again, just stopping and rocking and holding, as they call it. And you just want to hold it for a few seconds so that it really gets glued down. You want to make sure it's flush, like the angle is flush with your nail. So those are looking good so far. And then I wouldn't try to pry your skin away until you have let it dry for a couple minutes or just a little bit longer than just to apply it on there, because it may or may not put pressure on the tip and break it off or whatever. Sometimes they can break off if the glue isn't completely dry, and then you kind of are pulling off your nail layers and stuff, and then you have to put it back on, and it's much messier the second time. So you just want to make sure that you have a nice, clean, gentle application. And you don't have to worry about the corners a ton, because we're actually going to blend these tips and file off some of that edge where it meets the natural nail. So they're looking good so far. I'm just going to finish these up. The nice thing about natural tips is that they are kind of see-through, so you can see your own nail through that well and kind of make sure that it, like, you can see the air bubbles or the lack of air bubbles a lot more clearly than you would with a white tip. So that's always a nice feature. And then contrary to clear tips, which are literally crystal clear in color, these have a slight bit of color to them, so you can wear them just as like a natural looking nail without having to polish them or do anything to them to make them look prettier. And that's kind of the result that I'm going for. It's like a very natural look, because I don't always like to paint my nails. Sometimes I think that it looks nicer just to leave them as is. Okay, so before I get to the other hand, these are really long and claw-like, and I'm a musician, so I'm not really going to have them be much longer than my natural nails. So it might seem like a kind of a waste to take away all of this length, but like I said, I'm really going for like a natural and easy effect. So I have a tip cutter, and they look like this. They kind of look like those little doggy claw toenail cutters, you know, but they're meant for nail tips. I have a feeling that this arch area is more suitable for human fingernail sizes than like a doggy clipper. So I would just say go to a beauty supply if you can and find one of these. The nice thing about them is that they cut your tips without you having to kind of sit there and pry at the nail and twist it off. So it just gives like a much cleaner, unblemished effect to the tips. So again, just kind of increasing the wearability of them by themselves. So I'm just going to get it right up against my skin because I don't really want to have them that long, and I think that length that it's giving right there is good enough for me. And then also, this is the side with the blade on it, as you can see. So you don't want to put your finger in this way because you might like cut yourself. So you want to always put it in on this side. And then you also want to make sure that it's like, you can have it flush with your skin, but you kind of want to angle it. Let's see if I can show you. Kind of want to angle it up a little like that so that it's away from your skin, like in that little triangle in between the nail and the skin. There's like a tiny bit of space. That just ensures, again, that you don't cut yourself. And then the more experience you gain with it, the more kind of close you can get. So I'm just snipping it off. It's going to be about that long, and I'm just going to do that to all 5. And it's nice because when you're doing it right up against your finger, you don't have to like measure so precisely because it's just kind of how it naturally ends up resting on your skin, or on, like, you know, the length is kind of how it would naturally rest each time, so it kind of works perfectly, and you don't have to think about how long it's going to be, and you don't have to like match it up to the rest of your nails. Sorry, I keep picking up little pieces because they keep flying everywhere. All right, the big one. So that's about the length I'm going to have. That's pretty nice. I can still... Oop! That tip just came off. I guess I'm going to have to glue another one on. I might not have gotten enough glue on that one. I don't think I put enough glue on that one. That's so funny. So yeah, make sure the glue is actually coming out when you glue on the tip, because I think that's what happened with this nail. So for now, I'm just going to leave that to set a little more. I've got enough mobility now that I can do the other hand. And then if you do notice a little air after this is already on, you can kind of dot the tiniest amount of glue on there and then wipe off the excess, and it will fill in that space. And now another thing to realize is that your nails may not be perfectly curved this way, like down the barrel, like the tips. So sometimes you have to adjust for that, and it's not too difficult. It just requires a little extra attention to detail. My nails are a little bit crooked, so I kind of have to watch out for that sometimes. And my fingers are also a little bit crooked. So sometimes if I have too much length on my nail, it'll actually look kind of funky on me. So the shorter nails can kind of prevent any weird looking stuff as well. Nice. Now I have little tip things everywhere, little ends, but that's just kind of part of the deal. So just closing this up, looks like it snaps on, so I might just kind of leave it upright for a little bit so it doesn't leak or anything. Okay, so now that we have our tips applied, we're not going to go straight into doing the acrylic just yet because we want to blend the tips. So we want to blend the edge that's attached to our natural nail kind of into our natural nail so that as the acrylic goes on, it goes on really smooth and there's no big ridge in the middle. And there are ways to counteract the ridge with the product, like by using excess strategically, but I would rather just kind of start with a good canvas and not have to compensate later. And again, it just looks more natural. It looks more cohesive with your nails. It's just not a bad thing to do. It kind of saves you time and effort and makes it very pretty. So I'm just going to shape them first, just kind of go over the tip with the file, make it all nice and smooth, because we did just kind of chop it off, like this one's uneven. So we're just going to even it out and get sort of a rough shape of what we want. I'm just going to leave them square and slightly taper off the edges just so I don't like scratch anybody. So, and they're mostly square with like a slight rounded edge because I like a little bit of natural roundness. And this file is a 100/180 grit. This side is the finer side, which is the 180, and this side is the rougher side, which is the 100. And with files, it's kind of like the bigger the number, the finer the grain. So just think about that when you're choosing a file. Now I'm going to take my finer side of my file, and I want to keep the file really flat to my nail so that it doesn't end up rubbing on my actual nail tissue. Like if you kind of hold it at an angle, it's going to start getting onto your actual nails. So you want to keep it nice and flat so that there's space there. And what you want to do is just kind of gently file that ridge area. And this can be a little bit scary at first, but as long as you're gentle, you won't really do damage to your nails, as long as you're careful. Sometimes I even like to angle the file upward away from my nail, because if the tip gets hit all over, that's not as big of a deal for your nail's health and wellness as if you get your real fingernail in the mix there. So it's better to kind of thin out the tip than thin out your actual nail, basically. This might take a little while because you are being careful, so just be patient and it'll feel a lot smoother once it's blended. It may not look smoother, but it'll feel smoother, so just kind of keep feeling at it and continue that process.